All right, everyone, welcome. My nose is running for some reason, sneezing. Um, my name is Lance Ash, and beside me on the sofa is,
This is Lance Ash.
and the name of the show is.
Nothing but worry.
Okay, so I only have one prepared thing to talk about. We'll get to that in a second. So, let's do the catch up. How's your week been?
Busy, busy, busy bee.
You want to go over what you've done?
Oh my god. So we've redone the book nook. The guys made the wire shelves last week. We took out the white Billy bookshelves and replaced them with wire shelving for our long-term pantry. We also repurposed the small larder we had in the back, and it is now for our tools. And it meant taking everything out of that back area. And then, having taken out the white bookshelves, that meant all the science fiction had to be gone through. And Peter went through and picked what he wanted to keep. And then we went through and decided what we wanted to get rid of. Peter went through what we wanted to get rid of, decided that he needed to keep some of this stuff, for whatever reason. So we managed to set aside about 4 dozen books to keep, plus 2 series or 3 series on top of that, like the Foundation series, the Old Man War series, and the Harry Dresden books. It took a lot of sweeping and mopping and dusting. And then once we got the wire shelves in there, got all the food put on there, and this is 4 feet for each shelf wide, and then over 6 feet tall, 18 inches deep. So it's a good supply of stuff. And it also includes like our heaters and our toilet paper and paper goods and some cleaning supplies back there. But then we took the white bookshelves and took them out and put them in the library. And now I'm in the process of sorting through the boxes that had accumulated in the book nook. And you took off 2 huge bags, heavy bags of stuff, donations to Goodwill this morning.
Yeah, Bonnie's been working every day, moving this here, then moving it back because you gotta. It's like that old riddle. You have the bag of grain, you have the fox and the goose, and it only can take two at a time.
Yeah. And I planned everything out so I'd have the minimal amount of exchange. And I had to, I knew that once the white shelves came out and we're going to get rid of those, or they're going to be repurposed for Lance's studio or for Peter's new house. But I knew I could use those to sort through all the boxes. So I made all these plans within plans. And so far we've stuck with the plans. There is some hesitation on my part about getting rid of a few of the things, but by purging every couple of days and just taking it off to recycling or donations or the library, we're getting it out of here slowly.
Well, a lot of this is in preparation for the empty nest when Peter finally moves out. But it's also, and I realized this over the last day or two, at a certain point you have to face the fact that you are getting older, and you have to plan for it. Make arrangements to order your life in such a way that it'll accommodate your agingness.
Years ago, when we had a couple of doorknobs break off, I went ahead and invested in the handle ones because those are supposed to be better for as you age. So we've already done that. And I've made certain that we've got 3-foot spaces for walkways in areas, so that would accommodate a wheelchair or a walker or whatever we need. But my very deep tub, I'm realizing I'm going to need one of those is it a sissy bar? What is it called? It's one of those bars you pull on.
Yeah, handicap.
My
thing.
dad has one of those as you enter his house from the garage. And it is really nice just to be able to pull on that and step up. It's just that little extra something, especially when you're unfamiliar with the steps. So, yeah, we're having to plan for things like that and make certain that the right space and accommodations are being made. But one thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to figure out how to handle the stairs. I mean, we've got a full flight of stairs on the front of the house.
Mm-hmm.
That's 9 stairs, and then the porch itself. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's a full flight.
we're going to have to do something about that at some point. Ow, my back is itching like crazy. So what I've been doing this week is working my ass off at work. And, I mean, I let my guitar chops slide for
Couple weeks.
several weeks, so I'm trying to build them back up, and I did pretty well today. So this week I've been making an effort to, practice every day.
Your first complaint after you let it slide is always, my calluses aren't as tough anymore.
Yeah, but I got today. I took out an hour, and I got the new issue of Lamp Clouding posted. So if you're interested, you can go over to lanceash.blogspot.com and Lamp Clouding number 40. I distinctly remember deciding to start this magazine. I was still back working in Duluth, and I guess that was over 5 years ago I started the magazine.
Yeah,
It's
what
one of
was
the-
the one before it? Crocodile or something?
I had some print magazines, some zines, Crocodile, but there's a limit to how much you can print because it's a pain in the ass. You got to staple it and all this shit. And then what are you going to do? Take time out to go down to the comic book store and get the guy to put it for sale on commission for $1? You know?
Woke Street actually had one of your comics for sale on their online shop for the longest time.
Yeah. Another thing I would do is I would go into libraries and go to the young adult section and sneak my zines in with theirs. And I think some of them actually got read. I remember one place they actually stuck a sticker on it saying this is not to be checked out, it's to be read here in the library.
Danielsville.
Pretty cool. And then a long time ago I had an online comic strip called Doodle Nose. But the problem is the blog format posts everything newest at the top. So when I was doing a daily comic strip, you had to scroll all the way down, go back pages and pages to start at the beginning to understand what's going on. The advantage with the online magazine is it's all bundled together in its number. So, this is number 40. If I want to start, I just, find number 1.
9 Figs. You remember that one?
9 Figs in the Flapjack. That was a big project.
That was a really well-drawn project. Now, that's the one that has the guy in the bottle, and somebody's handing him a mini saw.
Yeah, that
Remember
was a good... That was more an illustrated
book
text because the pages, the drawings themselves had no words on them.
But the art was excellent on that.
I have not slept but maybe an hour or two today, and it's late afternoon now. And the thing is,
Caffeine.
to me, this is also part of the future lifestyle or routine when our son finally moves out. Because I want to have the thing is, I bust my ass all week, and I'm an old man. I'm getting to be an old man, and I can't take it. And so when the weekend comes, I don't really want a lot of hassle, and I don't want a lot of physical distress or emotional upheaval. And so if I want to get up at 5 in the afternoon and listen to music, or just hang out in the living room without having to worry about embarrassing him or pissing him off, that's what I'm going to do.
Well, Peter announced to me today that yes, they're going to move in a couple months, but as of the weekend after next, he and Megan are going to be back on the same off weekend schedule. He's off every other weekend. She's off every 3 weeks or every fourth week for a weekend. And so that means that every other weekend she's going to be here and they're going to be canoodling. And they don't want to be disturbed and they don't want to have guitar playing and heavy music and all this kind of stuff. And Peter gets irked with us. I mean, you would think that we were the teenagers and he was the parents.
Well, I thought. Okay, I don't want to talk about. I don't want to get depressed.
What?
You said a couple of months. I was hoping a couple of weeks.
No, it's going to be like June or July.
Well, they better hurry the fuck up. I'm getting
That's the thing.
old here.
I know. Supposedly her grandfather is hiring or has hired someone to finish up the house.
You know, when when our first child was born, my dad was 48. I'm 8 years older now than my dad was when he became a grandfather. And when I think back on it, I think of him as being. The feeling I got was he was so much older than I feel now. Because inside,
Old fart. He really was. Remember, Reed or Peter's birthday came along. It was the first or second birthday for one of them. And we had to accommodate somebody in the family who worked weekends, and everybody else worked during the week. So we had to have the party on a Sunday morning about 10 or 11 o'clock. Your father refused to come. I've got to be an usher at the church. I'm sorry, it's your grandchild's birthday. What the fuck? I was so offended. That kind of behavior just made him more old and stodgy than he was.
You just reminded me of something. I hadn't thought of that in years.
What?
It's been so long since I've been to that church and that formal church setting, I forgot about when they would take up the offering. The ushers, there were 4 of them, because there were 2 sides to the aisle, and they would each one would stand at the end of a pew, and they would pass the offering plate down to the next one, and he would pass it back down the next aisle. I hadn't thought of that in, God, 40 years. Oh my God. The way that place smelled, the baptismal thing was behind the.
How many people went to that church? It was a tiny little church.
Yeah, I think the enrollment was much larger than the actual attendance every Sunday, but I would say on average they had 100 people.
That many?
Maybe. I can't remember.
I remember Jane telling me about 15 years ago that there were about 30 people at the most now when she was going. It just kept whittling away because it was all the old people. Everybody had gone off to have programs with their kids and such, and it was just the old parts doing it.
Well, the preacher's podium was up on this higher level than the rest of the pews, but behind him was this curtain, and on baptism days they'd pull this curtain aside, and there's this glass wall that went halfway up, and behind it was the baptismal pool thing. It was like a giant bathtub, and they would fill it with water. But behind it was like this really creepy, horrible mural of like water, the waves splashing up against the side of the rock. And it always gave me the creeps. And on the day I had to get baptized, you had to go into the water in your clothes, and you'd bring a separate pair of clothes to.
Really, you guys didn't have some kind of like choir robe kind of thing?
No, you brought an extra pair of clothes that day.
How weird!
And the preacher would stand in the water with this special robe thing on over his clothes, and dunk you, and then you'd move through to the other side and climb back up, and oh my God, my head is so full of all that crap. I've been remembering things lately that I haven't thought of. Um, God, it's amazing.
Well, you talking about baptism reminded me of the origins of baptism. Do you know about that?
Mm-mm.
It starts in the Jewish tradition, and anyone who had not been born of a Jewish female and wanted to become Jewish had to undergo a baptism ceremony. It was a ceremony basically meant to symbolize going through the birth waters again. It was a public acknowledgement that you were being reborn as a Jewish person, and so you would go into a body of water and come out again, and that was the symbolism of being reborn, as in the birth waters kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so the early church, Christian church, started to borrow a lot of things, of course, and baptism was one of those things, and they changed it to where you were converted into Christianity that way, because the original Christians were actually Jewish people. And then everyone else that would join then followed in this tradition.
Oh my God. You know, they made such a big deal when I was a kid. We are Baptist. We do it, the baptism the way the Bible says, full immersion in the water. The Catholics, they have perverted it with their lazy ways, sprinkling the baby's head.
Oh, Lord.
Who gives a fuck? You made it all up in the first place. It's unbelievable.
Well, I think it just reaffirms the idea that all these religions borrow from each other. And they all put their own little special spin on it.
What amazes me, though, is I know lots of people that early childhood indoctrination in it, you know, it fixes it in their heads, and they will never shirk it off, no matter how much they might.
They're so superstitious, they think they're going to be damned to hell. It's like your father telling you that nothing ever good would come to you if you did not tithe regularly to the church. That was told to you when you started getting cash. You started earning some small income, whether through allowance or small jobs, cutting the grass, whatever. And it was...
I think it was when I was working at Kroger, my first real job. My first job was reading water meters for the city. I got paid $50 a month.
Yeah, but you
went out of your way
to tithe. And
I tithed $5 out of that.
Rewarded you as a
because he said, "Well, if you're tithing, then we'll pay for your haircuts." That's what he said.
Fuck? What type of parent doesn't pay for the kids' haircuts?
But later, when I was working as a bag boy at Kroger, I'd been there a couple of weeks. I was getting a paycheck, and he asked me, it's out of the blue, "Well, are you tithing?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Good, because if you don't tithe, you'll never have nothing." That's a quote.
Never have nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. That's perfect for your father.
Can you imagine how much money my
They
parents
wasted
threw away on
school.
offerings to, tithes and offerings to that church, and then spending money on that private Christian school?
And you need to understand, it's not just the tithes of 10%. It's offerings.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Love offerings.
You had
above and beyond, where you get guilted to giving any more.
Yeah, they had
even more.
The Southern Baptist Convention had special offering drives a couple times a year. One was the Lottie Moon Missionary Fund. One was Annie Armstrong Fund. There were several.
When my sister died because she refused the fucking vaccine, her obituary said donations may be made to the Lottie Moon Fund, and I was like, Jesus Christ, what? Yeah. But this was the obituary that said that she liked sitting on the front porch and watching Hallmark movies. So,
well, when I started I stopped going to church when I was about 15, 16. And I stopped for many years, and then I got in trouble and decided I had to go back to church to make my parents off my back for a while. So, but I decided I wasn't going to go to their church. So I started going to this, what would you call it, Pentecostal church, Holiness Church.
Where you saw me.
Yeah, I saw you one night.
Yeah.
But so I got to be good buddies with the preacher there. It was a tiny little church, like maybe 20
Literally
people.
over a storefront.
They were speaking in tongues people and all this, So he told me, well, you need to get baptized. And I said, well, I've been baptized. He goes, you need to get baptized again. That went against everything that I'd been taught. And I'm like, okay, whatever. So he baptized me in his bathtub. It's like all the family was there and some people were like, oh, we'll have cake afterwards, And, the shit I've been through, it's unbelievable.
I know.
He told me that speaking in tongues was the secret method to have direct communications with God and receive, magical mental images and insight into things and stuff. And he goes, so you got to start doing that. Well, I've tried and nothing's coming. He goes, well, just make it up until it starts coming naturally to you. So now at this time, I was going to school at Emmanuel, which is a small Christian college up north of here. So it's a 45-minute drive to get there and have classes. So I was trying to get my GPA back up so I could go back into UGA. Emmanuel was mainly a a preacher college, but it was also a place where kids who were on academic suspension from Georgia would go to get their GPAs back up so they could get back into UGA.
And then there were people like my sister who went to get her MRS.
Old joke there. But anyway, so...
No, my sister went looking for a husband.
Yeah, but the MRS thing, But anyway, so on this trip, to go to school, the 45-minute trip, I would make up babbling crap in the car, saying it out loud to myself, thinking, well, any minute now, it's going to start clicking in,
It doesn't. When I was growing up, we went to a church. Well, first off, how we got there, we were a member of one church, and that church said that they refused to marry my mother to her husband because they were both divorcees. So they left that Baptist church, went down the road to another Baptist church, which was the football church, and it was just where you go to be seen. And so they went there and got married by the preacher, and then they became members. And they didn't feel like that was a sincere church. So we went to this other church. This other church was actually not as sincere, but they were big into instruction. The preacher had a doctorate in theology. And so he would have these 5-point sermons with so many. Yeah, it was one of those. So we're in a serious sermon one Sunday night. And yes, even on Sunday nights they had serious sermons. We're in the middle of this serious sermon, and this woman she stands up, and she starts babbling in tongues. And the preacher said he immediately got his Bible open and read the Bible verse that addresses speaking in tongues. Said, if someone speaks in tongues, there must be a translator, blah, 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 blah. And he said, I'm calling forth anybody who is here that can translate. For half a second, I thought, just stand up and say bullshit. This is me in my teenage years being a rebel. And then I thought, no, I can't make up anything on the spot. I can't bullshit that well. But anyway, after a couple of minutes of babbling, he goes, there's no translator. I'm sorry, we're going to have to ask you to leave because this is not of the Holy Spirit. But that church was actually a very positive church for growing up with kids, because every single season they had trips and events. Mm-hmm. We would go to the beach every spring. We would go to a big camp, some mountain camp in the falls. In summertime, there would be some sort of big trip somewhere. And then in the wintertime, it was some ski lodge, ice skating, something or another. And it was a lot of fun because at these outings, you had a week to 2 weeks or even 3 weeks to go and just be a kid. And we did all the things that you did at camp. You had canoes, you had crafts, you had bonfires and all that kind of stuff. And I can understand why some families want their kids to have those type of experiences, because that was a very positive experience. But I've also been on the other end of things where they guilt trip you to the point where you are a miserable sinner. You're heading to hell, damnation. You're going to burn for all eternity. You're going to be separated from your family. You're damned and going to hell. So much so that I went through a couple of different, quote, conversion experiences. So I went through several different baptisms. I went through several different periods of walking down the aisle until I got to be 18, and I realized I need to figure out what the hell I really believe, because I was in college at this point, and I'm getting exposed to all these different ideas and different people and different beliefs, and I thought, I need to know what it is that I believe. And the more I went looking, the more I realized there was no evidence, and I didn't have the faith to believe in something that was unknowable, unprovable. And so that's where I began my transition away. And after that point, I tried to go back for the social aspects and for the emotional aspects in some ways. And so I did Unitarian, the church. I did the Pentecostal thing with you because of Bob. I got set up on a date with Bob, and he and I hit it off not as a date, but as friends. And we were at that point, I was always about 5 years older than everybody else in my age group for responsibility and such. That's what happens when you have a crazy mom and have to take over taking care of things. So he and I were at that same level. We were both still, I was still in school, and yet I was still working. We had financial responsibilities that other people in our peer group didn't have. One of the things we bonded over was the fact that nobody else could pay their way, and we always ended up having to pick up the bill. So it was nice to be able to go and do things with somebody who could pay their own way. But more than that, it was okay for us to go and have, Japanese food together and get sake. And he didn't have to feel guilty about it. And so there was that period of about 4 or 5 months where Bob and I hung out. And I went to that church because my best friend was there.
Oh, sorry, I'm just laughing at something. You're my
What?
Okay.
What do you remember? Because you knew Bob too.
Well, no, this isn't. This is a different. This is something related to my life. This
What?
is okay. You said talk about pay your own way. All right.
Yeah.
The main significant relationship I had before Bonnie was I dated this girl for 4 years basically, and I had this 1978 van. Okay, and she just assumed that I would pay for everything, right? So, I was always up against it money wise. So we're driving along in the van, and she says, "Go through the McDonald's drive-thru and get me a cup of coffee." So, okay, I'm grumbling because I don't want to pay for it. So I get the coffee and I pass it to her. I pay for it. I pull away from the drive through the little window thing, and I looked at her sort of mean, and I said, "I'm sick and tired of paying for your incidentals."
Incidentals.
Yeah.
A 40-cent cup of coffee.
So I turned to the left to see if I can turn. And the cup of coffee hit me on the side, hit me on the right side. She just flung it at me, and I turned and looked at her, and she was glaring at me like, "How dare you?"
Threw hot coffee on you.
She had put milk in it or something. It was just warm. But
Jesus.
still, oh my God. That was just that whole exchange.
My growing up and the idea of paying my own way came very early. We were very, very poor. And at some point in middle school, I ended up going to an out-of-town thing, and we got to McDonald's, and suddenly I thought that the person driving was going to pay for everything, and she had to reverse the order to take off what I had because I had no money on me. It didn't occur to me to bring money. I didn't have money, that sort of thing. And This was the same week that I had begged my mother to buy me a pair of Nikes, okay? And it was like just pulling teeth to get her to do this. And so we were still really struggling at this point. And so when Phil, my stepdad, came along, when he married my mom, it was like, okay, we've suddenly got money, we got allowances. More than that, we got clothing allowances every spring, every summer, every fall, every winter. We went shopping. We went to Lenox. We went to all these places and bought lots of stuff, you know? Anyway, one of the strange things that happened, though, with Phil was, he said, I don't want you to be beholden to anybody. Before you walk out of the house on any date with any friends, you see me, and I'll give you a $20 bill. I'm not going to ask for it back. You spend it on whatever, but you make certain you don't owe that boy anything, you don't owe your friends anything, etc. So I always had to have $20 on me. I get to keep the 20, that kind of builds up, you know. Anyway, so when our kids, and when I went to college, I was still paying my own way, you know, making certain that I had enough money to cover, even though at that point when I got to college, there were a lot of older guys that went, let me pay your way, you know. But when we had kids, I made certain that they always had money in their lunch boxes. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
They had a little pouch, and I would have a couple dollars and 4 quarters, and say, this is how you pay. This is 50 cents for your ice cream on Fridays, and this is 25 cents for your chocolate milk if you want to get chocolate milk, sort of thing. And then every time they left the house to be with their friends or to go to any event, I handed them money. It was usually like 5 ones, $5 bill, and $10, you know. Make sure they had at least $20, you know.
Yeah. Oh, God. I can't believe they just disappeared so quickly.
The kids, they
Yeah.
grew up just overnight.
Well, when you look back, it's just like
And yet Peter still lives with us, and
Just-
he's 27.
28.
28. Jesus. He just turned 28, didn't he?
At least he's not 40 living in the attic.
Oh, God.
Charles Crumb comes to mind.
Yeah.
Um,
For a while there, Peter was so sick, I was thinking that he would never leave home. And so this is a really big thing for him to be financially independent to do this, because I've made certain that he's saved up over the last couple of months. Just, he has zero debt, has saved and saved and saved. He's kind of been begrudging about that because it took him getting birthday money before he could afford this $200 set of books that he wanted. And he's been really kind of angry about not being able to do that because I've been making him save so much.
well, speaking of which, if anybody out there has heard of this, I've been trying to find this forever. In high school, I don't know why, but they showed us this, like a PBS type documentary on mental illness or something.
What school was this?
This was at ACS. This was at the Christian school. Because often they didn't have enough material, so they would tape something and then bring it into school to show you. Anyway, it was about schizophrenia, I think. And this man was like in his 30s. And he was still living with his mother because he couldn't live by himself. He was nuts. But
That's the clinical term.
yeah, but what was cool to me was, and I wanted to see this again forever, is that he in his room, on the back of the mirror on his dresser, he had scratched this diagram, which he claimed was a map of the universe. And at the time when I saw it, I was like, God, that's really creepy. It was like a
And now you think it's cool.
yeah. I want to see it again.
Oh my God. How did I know that you would think it was cool?
The
God.
the-
As Reed would call it, a big wall of crazy.
The shit I saw, 50 years ago is still in my head, and I want to find it.
When you
The,
and I first got married, one of the things we watched on one of those PBS documentaries, like Nova or something, was about the guy named Brian who became Rebecca or something like that. It was a Canadian young man who had been born indeterminate genitalia. And that happens a lot more when people realize, like 1 in 2,000 births that happens in. And so his parents were pushed to make certain that he grew up a certain way. So they chopped and clipped, and he became a girl. So he grew up as a girl, but then as he got older, he realized, I'm not a girl, I'm actually a guy, you know? And you and I decided that we would not do anything to our kids if they came along and something was indeterminate. And one of the things we wouldn't do would be circumcise our child. So we decided that Peter would stay intact. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And we got pushback from both sides of the family. It's not clean.
It's weird looking. It looks
Yeah,
like a
it's just-
worm.
And
Oh,
I had a German friend who was like, that's natural and normal. Why would anyone cut their children's tip of the penis off?
Well, a long time ago, I read a quote from some Arab cleric or something from a couple hundred years ago. And he said the reason we circumcise the men is because otherwise the penis enjoys sex too much, and the sex will distract him from focusing on God.
And you read the biography of the English explorer,
Yeah,
Sir Richard Burton?
Sir Richard Francis Burton.
Yeah. And he decided he wanted to go to Mecca and do the Hajj.
Well, no, he converted to Islam
he went through
sincerely
the- Oh,
to
he
a
did?
certain extent, and to do so he had to get circumcised. And he said he never enjoyed sex again after that.
Yeah, it was one of the things that you
I read that a long time
were
ago.
profoundly upset about, that you have been mutilated.
You just wonder what goes through people's heads.
Yeah.
I think I've mentioned this before. Elvis Presley hated the fact that he was uncircumcised because he thought it wasn't as sophisticated as it should be, and he said he cursed his hillbilly pecker.
Oh my God. Huh.
Unbelievable. I can't. When you look back, Elvis was 42 when he died. Weird.
42's long since come and gone for us.
It is. It's strange.
It's one adult child ago.
John Lennon was 40 when he died.
Was he shot in the back?
Shot in the throat.
Jesus. What the fuck? And that guy was a crazy Christian convert, wasn't
Yeah.
he?
He lived in Hawaii. And
Who?
the killer, yeah. And I guess it was the big, what's the word I'm coming? Big. It was a big interview that Lennon did with Rolling Stone magazine after his 4 or 5 years of being in hiding or being a recluse, put it that way. And when Mark David Chapman read the interview, he was just sickened that this rich rock star that he actually hero worshipped beforehand had become so anti-Christian and had become so anti what am I saying, youthful ideals or whatever, that he decided that the Lord had told him he must die. I think about this a lot. Julian got shafted. He's got like maybe $2 million out of the estate, and Sean's going to get like 600, 700 million. It's ridiculous. Yeah. When I first got into the Beatles, I thought John Lennon was just the greatest thing in the world. I thought he was just clever. He's just a fucking asshole. Dicked over his first wife, dicked over his first son. Just a lazy person, fundamentally, is what it boils down to. Meet this woman and have her take control of his life.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh, what?
No, you took me in hand. It's a different matter of taking control of my life.
Oh my God. I believe my words to you were, I can help you with that.
Yeah, I believe I can help you. enabled me to establish a structure through which I could do my art.
One of the things that bothered me about your sister and her child rearing was the fact that she had no structure when it came to her kids. And yet, she demanded structure when they were infants. My baby's firstborn, it needs to nurse every 4 hours, at least. And she had the babies broken by the time they were like a month old. She refused to pick them up at night. But yet, later on, she refused to have set lunch times, breakfast times, dinner times. She refused to have patterns, discipline for their agenda, etc.
I don't remember this.
When we had our kids, we set times for every meal. There was a set hour that they would wake up. They were allowed an extra 30 minutes or something on the weekends to sleep in. But once you get into the habit of waking up at a certain time, your body just adjusts to that. And we even had set meal patterns because Peter's behavior became so erratic during elementary school that we needed to help him with his OCD. So I established a pattern for his meals so that every breakfast and every lunch was the same, so that his sugar levels were maintained. We didn't want him on drugs, remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted to do all this other stuff. And I said, no, we're going to do behavioral therapy. And I'm going to just set it straight.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. Long time ago, I briefly went to a shrink, and he prescribed antidepressants for me, which was an interesting experience. But anyway, I didn't follow up on it. But secretly, I was hoping he would give me Ritalin, because a couple of years before I had read, I think it was in Esquire, a story by a guy who had taken Ritalin. I don't know if it was prescribed to him or if it was a specific experiment or whatever, but he said that it made him write like a machine. He said words would just pour out when he was typing. And I was like, that'd be a good experience, but...
The thing that we had to do with Peter was make certain that every minute of his day was assigned. And at school, he had gotten so bored, he would sit there and kick the back of the desk of the person in front of him.
I remember that now.
And so what they had to do was they literally put him aside and separate from other people. And so, okay, instruction time, everyone do the worksheet. And Peter had a cue, like when you finish your worksheet, you raise your hand and she comes over and starts the next process. And he was kept busy all the time. And he started taking books to school. And the books were 300, 400, 500 pages long. And he would go through a book in a week. Because even after he had done the classwork, the extra work, the online work, he still had time left over. And he was reading at a 12th grade level when he was in 3rd grade. He was an amazing kid, but he just couldn't deal with things. He had to be directed.
So the show's almost over, but I want to bring up the topic I had in mind. This is the only thing I had in mind.
What?
I thought of, I don't know how to do this, maybe as a skit or a cartoon, but it'd be funny to have a scenario where there's a building site and there's all these people working there, and ICE shows up and they're going to round them up because they're undocumented workers or whatever, and the owner of the construction company comes out and goes, no, you don't understand. These people aren't my employees, they're my slaves. Oh, I didn't realize they're your personal property. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, we'll leave you alone. Get back to work, guys. I'm sorry.
Man, that would really appeal to the Republicans.
It really would.
Jesus.
A lot of the libertarian fuckers, like and the Musks and so forth, make slavery legal again. It should be your right to sell yourself into slavery,
Well, Peter's generation has a phrase for people that are coming up, and it's wage slave.
That's an old term.
And it's most apt. And at this point, these billionaires want to create these little communities
That's right.
and towns. Musk already has one out in Texas where you work for the company, you live in the company housing, you buy it from the company stores, they pay you in company script. And they want to go back to those days and make you beg to work for them because they've bought your debt. Do you get that? That people can literally buy another person's debt now?
But, yeah, that's right. Keep voting Republican because Jesus told you to. All right, we're going to wrap this up because I got to get this made and try to...
Get some more stuff done this weekend before the boy gets home.
Right, yeah.
All right.
All right, so I guess that's about it.
That's it. Goodbye.
Goodbye.